Hello, everyone. This is Robert Robinson here in HUD headquarters, and we're getting ready to start. Sean just came in, so we're going to kick off our training. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and we will let Sean get rolling.
Welcome, everyone. As part of this training today, there are two parts. The first part that we'd like to go over are, as shown in the agenda, actually there are three parts because the questions are very important also. But the first part, we will be addressing the RAD Transaction Manager dashboards that are available on the website currently. And when I say the website, that's the RAD Resource Desk. Over the last 3.5 months, we've developed a number of dashboards as management tools to manage the RAD portfolio and to provide you tools to help compile and give you a better, larger kind of a 30-foot, 1,000-foot perspective of what you have in your inventory, where it is in process, and some performance metrics to give you a better sense of how that process is working, where the bottlenecks are, and how you're performing against an average, okay? And when I say you are performing, this could be at the division level, the team level, or all the way down to the transaction manager portfolio level. So to give you a better benchmarks as far as what timing is we anticipate some of these workflows to take, and how you're tracking against that, or a project is tracking against that, so you have a better sense of, is it time to look deeper into what is causing a bottleneck, or is it that I have some processes that are excellent and they should be identified as best practices. So let's jump right into the reports, and we'll start with the first one being at the highest level, what we call the Secretary's Dashboard Report. But first, how do you get to those reports? So what Robert's showing you right now is that this is the RAD Resource Desk main screen. So when you enter the RAD Resource Desk, you see this. First, login. You type in your login username and password.
You want to be transaction manager or team lead?
Ooh, what do I want to be today? I want to be a transaction manager. Ooh, Jen, I'm going to be you today. Oh, I like Jen's inventory. Because recently she put a lot on the board, so it looks really good. So under reports, you see that we're going down to what's titled the dashboard report in purple. All right? Now let's look at this before we go into the reports themselves. So under the portfolio reports, you see that there are 3 different hyperlinks: the Secretary's report, the inventory report, and the production performance metrics. The first report, and what you'll notice as we go into each of these 3 reports, or these first 2, the Secretary's report and inventory report, they are formatted similarly. The performance metrics and the portfolio reports are formatted in a way that we can start at the 30,000-foot level and look at something, and then drop to 20, then 10,000 foot, and get greater detail about, but the focus is very similar. We're just zeroing in, or you think of it as a microscope, just zooming in on a particular field. So for the Secretary's report, the Secretary, this is a report that we actually do provide to the Secretary on a periodic basis. It is a 1-page report that provides the Secretary and Margaret the opportunity to look at what do we have as a division, as an initiative demonstration, and how are we performing. 1 page how's it going? What are your numbers? Very high level. So at the very top, what you're seeing is the overall portfolio. This includes, in blue, the dark blue, all of the RAD transactions that are currently pending award. In the green, above that, the next largest group, those are projects that have been issued CHAPS and are in some form of processing prior to closing. I can't see. Robert, can you tell me which one is the closed projects? Are those the red ones? Okay. At the very top, those projects up there, that red bar, identifies the 4,000 units that we've closed over the last, well, since we started. When you, and the chart to the left identifies in detail, in a waterfall approach, the total number of units, the applications received, and then breaks them down as we go through it. The next bar chart, the histogram, shows an actual flow of projects, CHAPS, through the RAD development process. So at the very far left, there are two buckets. There's the first bucket are current. Oh, and the previous month. So we have a flow of work showing a progress from one month to the next. You have a trailing month and a current month. And it indicates how many of the CHAPS that we have in process are at each stage of processing. So as you would expect, you're seeing some variation in the current month versus the trailing month to give you a sense of what's going on, what's the flow, what's the process flow in this work right now for your total portfolio. And again, to the side, we've given the actual number so that you can see the trailing versus the current. Unit count is very important. So we've added both project count and unit count. Our goals are based on unit count. This year we have a closing goal of 15,000 units. And so it's very important at the secretary level that we include those unit counts. And we'll be going back and forth as far as unit counts and project counts because, again, unit counts are very important. But as a transaction manager, you are focused generally on projects and closing projects. And then the last chart shows the uptick in our production work over the last 6-8 months. The top of the blue chart or graph shows the RCCs issued, and the red chart shows the actual RAD conversions or closings. So this is at the 30,000 foot level. This is what the secretary needs to see. This is what he says, okay, I don't need 5 pages of report, I need 1, and I need to know what's going on. Now, as we go into the dashboard, that at the division level, you're going to see very similar data, and this is these are management tools that Margaret and the team leads are using because the formats are the same. So, Robert, if you could go to the inventory report. Overall or 5? Let's go to the overall first. So I'm going to just spend a little bit of time on this. Now, this is the overall inventory report. The division level, team level, and transaction manager level report all look the same this first page. And so when you pull up your transaction manager report, you will have a report just like this. The first is histogram. It shows an overall status of your projects. We've broken them up into 3 buckets or cohorts. The first cohort identifies those projects that you have from that with CHAPS issued in late December 2012 through early 2013, like January. The second cohort is spring through summer of 2013. And the third cohort is the fall and early winter. Actually, it goes from the fall of 2013 to current. What you'll notice as you look at these bar charts, they have multiple colors indicating the different stages of the RAD milestones, blue being at the beginning of the milestones, and the far orange, I believe, being the closed projects. What you see very clearly is in the first cohort, the one that we've been spending the most time on. They've been in process now for 18 months. We have a higher number of closed projects, a big orange line showing, yes, we've completed most of those. And with the cohort 3, as you would expect, it's more heavily weighted to the right-hand side where the milestones are in the early stages of development team, the significant plan amendment, and the RPCA being the green line. So as a manager, whether you're managing your portfolio or as a division manager, you're looking at, do these charts make sense? Is it what I anticipate seeing? Where are the bottlenecks? Where are problems occurring? One that jumps out on the cohort 1 is we have one of the highest lines is the green line, which is the RPCAs. And we're going like, well, does that make sense? Would RPCAs be an area that we would be holding up? And for many of the transaction managers, you would say, well, yes, if we have a problem, one of the sticking points is at the RPCA point, because housing authorities sometimes have problems with scopes of work and the like and getting it right. So it's an indicator of project flow for each of the cohorts. Following that, we've broken that information into larger graphs and broke out the information for each of the 3 cohorts. And below, we've given we put the data in grid so you can see it visually and by the numbers. Again, you should be seeing a lot more numbers to the left-hand side in cohorts 1 and 2. And you should expect that more of the work, the projects are in the right-hand or the left-hand side for cohort 3 as they are beginning the process. Okay, so at the bottom, at the very bottom, you'll see the CHAP pipeline, and this is a summary of what we have with the current month in each of these phases. Now, you'll also note that we have it in colors. We have green, yellow, and red. And so we've broken up the information by cohort, by when the CHAPs were issued. And secondly, we broke the information into 3 different processing tracks, green, yellow, and red. The green are the projects as defined right below the tables. The greens are those projects with no debt or with conventional financing. The yellow have tax credits or FHA financing and or FHA financing. And the red are those projects that are currently on hold for one of 2 reasons. One, if they're with an expediter, or 2, if they are awaiting tax credit award. And so when you go down below to the CHAP pipeline final grid, you'll see a summary of what you have in each of those categories for the current month and then the trailing month to get an indicator of what has been the process volume and how has that changed over the last couple months. Robert, could you then show us the same report for Sherry? Now, this report. Oh, we can't. Yeah, for Harry. Okay. Then we'll show you for Jen. Harry's report would look very similar to this, but the numbers would differ because Harry only has about 1/3 of the work, his team, Now, Jen Cryer is on Harry's team, and this shows Jen's report right now. What does it look like? Well, my first impression is, wow, cohort 1 has only one deal in it. Cohort 2 has possibly 2, and they're at the 90-day stage, which is the ARC-PCA. And cohort 3 is showing that we have more in process, but they're spread out, is showing a movement of the projects across the RAD milestones. You'll note that for Jen, and Jen doesn't have any tax credit transactions, so there are no red bar charts on hers. Nothing on hold. No tax credit holds, no expediter holds right now. And so this would be a good indicator of, okay, where we're at, and from a team perspective, what do we anticipate coming up? For Jen, she has a couple RCCs that are in the works for cohort 3, but it looks like she can take on more work as she's recently closed a number of transactions, and that the transactions have a good flow through. So there doesn't seem to be any big red flag here. Let's pull up someone else. Now we're going to show you Harry's next. And from a team perspective, this is okay. So let's look at Harry's first. Okay. What are the key takeaways? One is it gives you the sense, whether you're a transaction manager or a team lead, what do you have in process? How are each of your cohort, those 3 buckets of when the checks were issued, how are they progressing through, and where to focus your activities if you are saying, well, wait a minute, there seems to be 1 or 2 areas where I consistently have bottlenecks across these 3 cohorts or in one area. And I had a sense of that intuitively, but this, with a compiled report, will present it very quickly to you, and so you can say, is there a problem, or is there an area where requires less attention or more attention? Secondly, in the bottom of the report on the expediter holds, those on hold, it'll give you a sense of what projects are on hold, and so what number you have. And if you have, with your trailing 2 months, if you would show that your trailing 2 months, there hasn't been much movement in those numbers, it's a good indicator that perhaps you need to spend a little bit more time on the expediter holds, or the particularly because the tax credit holds may not change for quite a while, but the expediter holds, there should be movement from month to month in those numbers. Okay, any questions on these 2 reports?
Nothing submitted?
Correct. Yes.
So the question was, in the first cohort, where the box says none, does that mean that none were submitted? And the answer is yes, that is correct. Okay, Robert, let's go to the portfolio, performance. This is just for Harry. No, that's fine. We'll do Harry. So on the back page, when you think of the dashboard report, the first page has all the graphs, and it gives you a visual impression of where you're at with graphs and charts. The second page provides some performance metrics that we believe are useful and will become even more useful as our data, which becomes more consistently input. And we're going to be covering that in the second part of the training. So on the second page, we have performance metrics which begin with who's responsible. We've tried to break it out into two parts. Since part of the RAD processing is controlled, the RAD development timeline, the Housing Authority controls a good part of that. And then at certain stages of the RAD processing, the transaction management teams have the control, in the sense they have the ball in the processing. We've broken our performance metrics into two pieces. In the first piece, we look at the PHA's milestone submission. And those milestones that immediately come to mind where the Housing Authority has the ball are the 90-day milestone, the RPCA submission, and the 150-day milestone where they are responsible for submitting their financial plan to HUD for review. Those are two key milestones in the development process where the Housing Authority has the ball and they are largely responsible for getting it in on time. Once they get it to us, then the transaction management team, in a sense, has the ball, and we're looking at their productivity and performance on the review of the financing plan, the issuance of the RCC once the financing plan has been approved, and following the RCC's issuance, how much time does it take from the issuance of the RCC to closing? Those are the performance metrics that we're looking at as far as what are the important steps and how are we doing, what is the average time for that process, and how are we doing against those marks, of the marks that we have set for performance. And then we've again broken it into the data into three different lanes. The green, yellow, and red. And if you recall, the green is for the no debt and conventional financing. The yellow is for the FHA and tax credit. And so we've broken this data into those lanes, thinking that there would be a difference in the processing times for those. And in the performance standards that we have set for processing times, we have said that generally we expect that the processing times for a review of a financing plan, I believe, is 30 or 35 days. 35 days for the review of a financing plan without FHA insurance, and I believe 60 days, 50 days for the FHA. And so we set these as performance standards that we should consistently be able to meet. Once we receive a financing plan and it's complete, we then would use that as a mark, as an indicator of are we within that time frame or not, and if we're within it, how consistently are we within that time? And so this is just a compilation of all the data for Harry's team, and it gives us a sense of how we're doing from for the current month and how we're performing against the trailing 2 months. And then at the very bottom of this report, we have those RAD transactions that are on hold. And you'll get a sense of, both for the tax credit and the expediter, how long they've been on hold, what the average is, and how does that compare. Now this is going to be very helpful for the transaction managers and team leads to say, well, wait a minute, if we have these on hold, how long have they been on hold on average, and do I need to pay attention to certain groups? Do I need to, and you may find that maybe group 1 and 2 are doing really well, but you've been spending most of your time on cohorts 1 and 2, since those were the ones that came in earliest, and you may not have been focusing on cohort 3, but wow, the expediter holds on cohort 3 are really long in the tooth. And so it might be an indicator that this is something that would be very valuable to spend a half day on and 1 day this week. But it's again going back to the idea that we're compiling the data and presenting it so that you have an overall view of what's going on in your portfolio and are able to see more transparently where what's doing well and where greater attention is needed. These reports are at the team level, division level, and transaction manager level are all the same format, and they're available to you, as Robert is showing you here, under the transaction manager reports. So this is Nancy Richards' example of Nancy Richards' production report, which shows the performance metrics. Each of you have a report like this, and it's available on your RAD Resource Desk. So if you haven't looked at it, please do so, because these are reports that will be of great help to you in the future. And if you have questions about how they're being put together, please call or email me or just ask now. And then, Robert, I'd like to also show the transaction managers the newest report, which is the Transaction Manager Dashboard report. We're going to pick on Jen again. So this is a report that when I was in Chicago and we had a conversation, we being the Chicago OAP team, Harry's team, and Kat and Scott from Kat's team, we sat down and we said, okay, well, these dashboards that we just went through are very helpful. They give an overall picture of your portfolio, but the transaction managers were saying, there's a lot of data in the RAD Resource Desk, and unless I go in and open each of the RAD assignments that I have, it's very difficult for me to track what's going on each of those projects and what activities or actions I need to take in the short run. And it would be great if I had just a hot list of things that that will remind me of maybe the last thing that the last note I put into the project's comment field or the milestone field for this project, or what's coming up on this project that I may need to attend to. Also, if there have been submissions coming in from the housing authorities and I'm not tracking those, it would be really great if I could get a short list of which recent submissions have been received so that I can go back and process those, make comments, or accept them. If they're acceptable, move to the next milestone, send a quick note saying, yes, I've accepted it, and move on. Or if there's something else I need, to respond to that timely and move on. So this is what we did. The first box of the Transaction Manager's Dashboard report is a list of those projects that you and your team lead have targeted for you to close this fiscal year. This is the list. And so for Jen, this is the list of her projects that she's targeted to close this year. And these are at the top of the report because we think these are most important, the closings that we need to get done this fiscal year. And so it's this next year we'll probably have a different list, but for this year this is what's on the list based on your best estimates of what you think is ready. These are the projects that we review every 2 weeks with your team lead, and we expect that you provide updates on every 2 weeks. Following that, the box on fire, the red box, is titled What's on Fire, and the transaction managers identified titles for each of these boxes, so we thought, let's go with it. They're pretty good. So what's on fire are two things are in this box. One, the PHA milestones that are pending your review. So if you have something that a housing authority has submitted and you haven't looked at yet, it may have come in through the RAD Resource Desk in the last 2 or 3 days or in the last 2 or 3 weeks. But if you haven't looked at it, haven't processed it yet, it will be on this first category, milestones that are pending your review. The second are those milestones that are upcoming in the next 7 days. So between you and the housing authority, you've agreed on the housing authority meeting certain milestones by a certain date. This is a list of what's coming up on in Jen's portfolio over the next 7 days. From being proactive, you can do 2 things with this. One, if you have time or know that there are certain key ones that would be very helpful to follow up on, you can send the transaction or the housing authority a quick note saying, how's it coming? Your milestone is due in 6 or 7 days. Just wanted to give you a quick reminder. If you have questions, please let me know. If you have something that is coming up in 7 days, you can also just be paying attention to look for it and plan your next week out by thinking, okay, this is the kind of work that I anticipate coming in over the next 7 days. The next is the blue, and this is titled Big Picture. These are projects that are identified to close in the next 60 days. And in the first group, and then the second group are projects that are targeted to close from 60 to 120 days out. We know that Bev Redmond's team, the closing team, is leading the charge on the closings, but we also know from time to time as transaction managers, you will be brought into the conversation for some technical information about the projects, and it's good to pay attention to those and just get a sense of how or where those projects are in that process still. The next 3 boxes, I believe, or 2 boxes, are production call updates. These are the last comments that you've input for the production call updates for your projects. We've broken up by cohort 1, 2, and 3, and so that you can see very quickly what are the comments and what are the action items that you have that you've input for those projects. So you don't need to go into the RAD Resource Desk and open each of the project assignments to look at what's going on. We've got it on one sheet for you. The next is a summary of the comments from the most recent milestone that you put in. We've included both because some project managers are inputting a lot in the milestones as far as their comments go, and there's a lot more field space to input comments, and so some transaction managers are using that regularly, and others are using the upper box that I just showed you on the project comments field in green. So we want to include both so that we capture that information whether you're doing one or the other. Over time, we'll ask you, what are you doing more of? What do you like better? And we can trim the report by just keeping one of the two if that's what you all say. And so those are the two. Is there so those are the how we've presented this information for you, and I think you'll find it a very valuable tool going forward. Just to have on your desk a printout gives you a sense of where your projects are and what are the action items that you put in for each of those projects. Any questions? Have you all used these reports before? Can I get a sense by, can they raise their hands? Okay, we're gonna have an activity. All of those transaction managers that have used these reports, and team lead, first I'm going to ask how many of the transaction managers have used the portfolio reports. Those are the portfolio and inventory reports. Those are the first two. Harriet said yes. Okay. Okay. Second question. How many of you knew about these reports? Okay, and the last question for you all is on the transaction manager report, the last report with all the color on it. How many how many of you think this will be a helpful tool? Everybody. Wow. You're stroking my ego, guys. But really, this is this report was the report created by the transaction managers or designed by the transaction managers and developed by Robert's team. But it should reflect what you need and want, because you all had a big voice in how this was created. Okay, these are the reports that we're going to be using. Now, one of the things that we're working on to make sure that we're all aligned and focused on the work that we're doing, and what's important is that we've created these dashboards that, again, are wholly aligned from the division, the secretarial level, all the way down to the transaction manager level. So we're all focused on the same information and performance metrics. From time to time, we've tried to align them with your EPI so that the performance standards that are identified in the financing plan reviews and the closing plan time and closings, the timeliness on closings are consistent with what we've identified in the portfolio dashboard, so that you this information and these metrics track across the board. So it's something that you can use as a tool to say, yes, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing. You can use it to have conversations up the chain and down the chain, but this is something that we're going to be using across the division to help us manage the portfolio, to provide greater transparency to the pipeline portfolio, and also to have a conversation about what's working and what's not. So please use it and send suggestions on how it can be more useful, what revisions you would recommend. Yes. We made some changes to the RAD Resource Desk milestone 180. The changes that we made were, again, an outcome of input we received from the transaction managers workshop that we held in Chicago. What we found in the financing plan milestone 180, was that we had one field that we were using for multiple purposes. We needed a date that would say when the application, when the financing plan was complete and accepted for processing. What we had was one field, and that field was identified, I think, as something similar to a financing plan received. The problem was that some transaction managers were using it to indicate when physically we first got the financing plan, whether it was complete or not. All the exhibits were there and the exhibits were complete. And some transaction managers were using that field to indicate not when the first of the documents arrived or most of the documents arrived, but when all of the documents arrived and the financing plan exhibits all were received, and it was moved in, we got the green light to move to financing plan review. So we're using one field to track two different dates: financing plan submitted and financing plan completeness review, determining that the overall exhibits were complete and good. Not that the overall financing plan was acceptable, it was just that we had a complete set of exhibits for review. So what we've done is we've added another field. And this field Robert, I will let you.
Yes. So based on the feedback we got in Chicago, we decided that we would add a date all required documents are submitted. So you can see the top here. We have the preliminary review complete, which is where, in this case, again, picking on Jen because she was one of the ones that kind of used this and helped me walk through this. That's when she walked through it and said, okay, I've looked at what you've got, and I've got some issues with that. So she did a preliminary review. They went back to the PHA. She needs some more stuff. Then she finally got it here on the 24th. And so now what we've added is the opportunity for her to populate that date. So what you all need to do, and I think Sean's going to mention it after I go through this, when this is going to start, but this date, it says date all required documents are submitted. So that, in this case, should be 3/24/14, because that's when she got everything. That's when the financing plan review starts. So from you as for transaction manager standpoint, that's when your real review is going to begin. So the idea here is, back to the performance metrics that Sean's already described, when you start calculating how long it's taking you to review a financing plan, this is the start date, and the end date will be down here at the bottom when you have reviewed, when you've approved the milestone. Not when you've submitted it to the committee or gotten committee approval, but when you've actually approved the plan and you're putting your approval committee package together. That's how that's going to work. Okay?
So when you put your approval package together, what that means is the date that you submitted to the RCC, that you uploaded to the SharePoint site. Okay. So that way we'll have a very clear start and stop date for the financing plan review. Now, the portfolio, the dashboard, the two dashboard reports, the first report we talked about had all the charts and graphs. The second report had the portfolio performance metrics on it. And we do have information populated as far as performance metrics go for the review of the financing plan. What we found when we first were looking at it, we found that there was a great deal of variability in these numbers as far as what financing plan we would expect would take somewhere between 35 and 50 days, depending on if it's a green lane or yellow lane, a no debt or an FHA. What we found was there was a great deal of variability, and that led to the conversations in Chicago about what was going on and where what fixes were needed so that it would make we would have consistency across the board and it would make sense to all the transaction managers. We're going to start this effective today. Well, let's see. Today is, I think we'll start the data collection next Monday. Next Monday we'll start the data collection, and we'll start tracking it on Monday. And we need to gather new data over the next 2 months or so. I think that will be enough to clearly identify what is the average processing times. Once we have the transaction managers now using this new field, or these two new fields, so that we have a clear start date and a clear stop date, we'll have good data and we can move forward from there. It's a good way of showing what's happening on your transactions and giving you a sense of how that process flow is going. And we can get a better sense of how much time these different types of transactions are taking. We anticipate that the no debt transactions and the conventional are going to be shorter. Anecdotally, and even some information that we have as far as processing times indicate that's true, but we would like to get a better understanding of what that truly is, and as we get better data, we'll be able to see where we need to improve the process, look for the waste in it, and remove it. We've done a good job in a number of streamlining efforts, but there's still things that we can do, and this will give us a better idea and greater transparency on what we need to do. Next up, Robert? Leanne.
All right, so we're going to jump over to do a refresh of the non-FHA tax credit fast track. So this was rolled out officially at the June network event And I know we went through a lot of this at that point, so this is really just going to be more of a high-level refresher and kind of reminder of the process. And then we've also rolled out the fast track functionality on the resource desk, so I'll take you all out there and walk through how you can set that up for transactions that are ready to start moving. So again, the fast track, it's required for all existing CHAPs that are awaiting their LIHTC award or allocation, so it's not an optional thing. They all have to do it. Consolidates the 30, 60, 90, 150-day milestones into one submission, due 60 days after the date of their award or allocation. And basically, it's a streamlined process that relies on the fact that there are a lot of other parties involved in these tax credit deals that have done a lot of the legwork, so there's no need for us to replicate it. There's the checklist and also the conversion template are posted on the resource desk. They've been up there for about a month, so hopefully folks have had a chance to look at them. We'll pull those up in a little bit. And we're hosting a webinar on the 22nd, similar to this, for the PHAs and their industry partners. So that'll be a good training for them as well. So they'll have an opportunity to get familiar with it in addition to your conversations with them. So the first step for all your existing CHAPs is to introduce this to them. So formally let them know this is the new order of events. So we recommend setting up a progress call with your PHA to roll out this fast track process. Make sure they've seen the checklist and the templates posted on the resource desk. It'll also be a great time to reconfirm a lot of key dates and details on the resource desk. So a lot of these that have been on tax credit hold for months on end, just go through and refresh. Make sure you know when their applications due, when they expect their award. Are they still doing new construction? Is there transfers assistance? Just kind of go through those property details, dates, and fields, and make sure everything's still on track and accurately represents the transaction. Go through the checklist, the timeline, show them on the resource desk where they'll upload the documents, which we'll do shortly. And then even though the clock doesn't start till they get their tax credit award, a lot of these things, as you know, take a lot of time. So that shouldn't be day one. So they should still get started on their significant amendment and thinking about relocation and the accessibility checklist as soon as possible. And then also just discuss typical things with them, such as their ownership structure, just putting feelers out to make sure they're on track to meet all the RAD program requirements. So the way it works, the PHA has to upload all the required documents to the fast track matrix on the resource desk in 60 days. There are two different types of documents, the underwriting documents on the checklist and then the administrative program requirements. The administrative program requirements, like the significant amendment, relocation checklist, PIC removal, all those are due in 60 days no matter what. However, the RAD team will consider a 60-day extension for the underwriting requirements. So those pieces can be extended, but not the administrative requirements. And when they get uploaded, you'll get an email similar to you today for any milestones. So once you get that email that everything's uploaded, you're going to have 30 days to review the package. Again, it's a much smaller package than what you're getting now for financing plans. There's a transaction manager fast track review checklist on the resource desk. We walked through that during the network event, so we'll pull that up again. And that'll just kind of be your guide as you go through it, kind of what to focus on. You're not going to dig quite as deep into these deals. And then once you're done, you would prepare it for a RAD approval committee and RCC issuance like you currently do. And then just a quick reminder, just because this is a fast track process doesn't mean the rules don't apply. So if they don't get their tax credits, or if they fail to apply for their tax credits, they still have the same ramifications. All right, so we'll go out to the resource desk, and I'll show you all what the fast track looks like. Yeah, so if you want to log in, so it's just Leanne 1 and then So I have a deal from Franklin Housing Authority that's going to be a fast track deal, so we're going to go ahead and set that up. So what Robert did is just went out to my Franklin deal, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the property details page, and we're going to go down, and there's a link on the left that says Fast Track, right below like conversion type, Robert. Oh, yeah. So we're going to select non-FHA, LIHTC, perfect, and then go down. And these are all the key dates you're going to want to take another look at when you're doing this. So mine's already got their award. So then we'll hit update. And then we'll go back out to the project.
Remember, if you don't get this, it didn't update.
Yeah, great reminder. Go back out to Franklin. And then we'll scroll down, and you'll see all my 30, 60, 90, 150-day milestones are gone. And I've got this 180. So Robert, if you click on the upload files, you'll see this is the Fast Track upload matrix. So it looks very similar to the 180-day matrix, but it just follows the Fast Track checklist. And you'll see here there are links embedded where they can pull down the checklist easily. The conversion overview template, the relocation template is linked down there. So these are all the items, and they would just upload it like they currently do for their financing plan, and you'd complete your review. And so then I just wanted to do a quick reminder of where you can find the TM review checklist and the process overview. So Robert, if you go into the document library, so you'll see the Fast Track. There's an internal process overview document. So that's just basically an outline of how this process works from the call to the expectations for reviewing what you can extend, what you can't extend. Just kind of it's helpful to have it all written out. So if you ever need a reminder, this is a good place to go. Just an internal document, so not to be shared outside. Things to talk about on your kickoff call, stuff like that. So that's found there. And then right below that is the TM review checklist. This is what we walked through in June. It kind of goes document by document following the checklist, showing you kind of what benchmarks and specific items in each document you're looking for. So on the left is the green column, proceed. On the right means follow-up required. And there's some built-in kind of sample emails you can send, things like that. So again, this is kind of just your guide as you're reviewing them, what to look at. It looks like Edgar's got a question. Hey, Edgar. You there?
Hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, no, my question was, so for these fast track deals, these are deals with tax credits and no FHA, but does that also include deals that have no FHA but conventional financing on them, or is this the ones with no financing, just tax credits?
Conventional financing and tax credits. So they'll have a first mortgage lender, but just not an FHA one.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Sure. All right, well, that's pretty much it. Any other questions? Sean, anything you'd like to add?
Just on the property detail screen, Leanne was saying it's very important that if you have changes to those dates as far as the target date, particularly the tax credit related to tax credits and the closing target date, please put those in there. We're using those data fields for a lot of different items in managing and projecting workload, staffing plans, and the like. Contractor support, help, all of that. So while you may think it's just a date, it's a very meaningful set of dates for us, and we really do need your attention to those. Please recognize that it's more than a date. It's a very important set of planning tools for us. And as far as the FHA streamline, we are working on creating a streamlined approach for the FHA process also. And my anticipation is it will follow in many ways that parallel the Streamline Tax Credit Fast Track. It's an excellent process, and I'm very excited about bringing the FHA Fast Track into it.
Great. Robert, any final words? All right. Well, this webinar is recorded, so we should have it posted in about 3 weeks if any of your colleagues weren't able to join us. It'll be on the resource desk.
Any questions?
Any other questions? All right, great. Well, thanks for your time today, everybody.